We're good to go, I think. So, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our seminar series. Sorry for the slight delay, a few technical issues, but we have resolved them. And before we introduce our speakers today, I wanted to mention that we have one more seminar in this series, the last one of the academic year. We've got Sebastian Stiebel next week talking about tropical atolls as bioecological systems and how and their ecology and their response to climate change. So very different topic, but very interesting. That'll be next Friday at 4:50. Well, all of us still coming out here in midsummer and all the heat and stuff and warmth outside. And so to introduce our speakers, I'm going to hand over to my friend Justin Adams, who many of you will know because he gave a wonderful talk about a month ago. And he's been hosting these guests as part of the amazing nature-based solutions conference that's been occurring in Oxford over the last few days. And our speakers have had a pivotal role in many of the events, small talks and ceremonies in that conference. So over to you, Justin.
Thank you, Yudvinda. It's lovely to be back at the Leverhulme. And yeah, welcome to everybody this afternoon. I am so delighted to introduce you to Mindahi Bastida and Geraldine Patrick Encina, who have come all the way from Mexico to be with us this week. They have been, as Yudvinda said, a integral and central part of the Nature-Based Solutions Conference, which has been happening up the road at the Natural History Museum. Mindahi has held the space, bringing people into ceremony ahead of the conference and reminding people of our deep interconnection to the earth and to the elements. And so that, I think, has created a very, very powerful wave that has run through the conference this week and has really impacted everybody who was there. So we're coming off the back of actually 4 days of being in that space, but it felt too good an opportunity with them in Oxford to not invite them to give a lecture here. And so I've just talked about Mindahi Bastida. He is an Otomian wisdom carrier from central Mexico. They're going to talk a lot more about their work. And then Geraldine Encina, his partner, has been a speaker yesterday at the conference and gave the most extraordinary talk on astronomy, so sort of the calendars, and I'm sure that's going to be woven into the talk you're going to give this afternoon. So both have got a distinguished sort of academic career as well, and yeah, I'm just going to hand to you to actually talk us through this wonderful, enticing title of The Return of the Mermaid and the restoration of the Lerma Wetlands. So thank you for being here this week, for everything you've done already, and you must be exhausted, but thank you for agreeing to do this talk, and we really look forward to it now. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Okay, so hello, everyone. Mindahi, come please closer. So let's I think that we're gonna be looking at the screen like this. We just need to set ourselves up a bit better. Okay. Okay, so I am an ethnoecologist originally. I'm from Chile originally. My first last name is Patrick, so I've got ancestry from these lands in Scotland. Yes, I've been living with Mindahi since 1999. And we met in the middle of the world in Quito in Latin America when we were young and activists, environmentalists, and dreamers of the possibility to protect geographies of major size throughout Latin America. Over to you, Mindahi.
Yes. My name is Mindahi Bastida, and I come from central Mexico, a very beautiful valley, the Valley of the Moon, as we call Zambata in the original names. And later on, it was named as Matlatzinco, and currently it's known as the Valley of Toluca, or Toluca Valley. And my community is a small community. It was an island in the beginning, but then he gave birth to the largest river in Mexico, which is called Lerma, and then Santiago after the lake of in Jalisco. And so we have that beautiful connection with waters, but then as you are going to see, many things happen because of colonization.
Yes, so as you can see in this picture, this is a system of a volcano that provides the water into the bottom of the valley. It's a volcano that is, I don't know in feet how much, it's about 7,500 feet, I think. And meters, it's over 3,200 meters above sea level. And this valley is 2,500 meters above sea level. So the forest that you can see over there, covering the slopes of the volcano, are temperate forests. And over here, what you can see is a combination of sweet waters, about 3 meters deep in some points, and about 1 meter deep in other spots, and a lot of bulrush and other vegetation, a beautiful composition of vegetation that is both superficial and also originally underwater. And there's a lot of variety of flora and fauna. But most importantly, what there is in the imaginary is the mother of the waters. And about the mother of the waters, we can say that this is a cosmovision from the Otomi peoples and also from the Mexica peoples who came much recently. We're talking about the Otomi, who are at least 10,000 years inhabitants of these valleys full of water in the highlands of Mexico, versus the Mexica, who are coming into these valleys at around the year 1280. And the people over here are having this interconnection with the mother of the waters, the father of the rains, the father sun, the grandma moon, and also with a mermaid figure that you're going to be seeing soon in some picture, but not yet. The mother of the wetlands over here, she's called Tlanchana. Tlanchane is the root word of this name is Mexica, because the language that has prevailed is mostly Mexica. And Tla refers to the water, and Atl, Atlan, Chane, and Chan is the mother. And she is the giver of so much life. And there's so many stories that I would love to invite Mindahi to tell a story about what is in the imaginary of your grandpa and of your father and of yourself. And the oral tradition carries on about how Tlanchana would show up in these wetlands for some people.
Yes, the first time I heard about Tlanchana was when I was very little one, and my grandfather and my grandmother used to have this beautiful space where we had fire. We call the Tlequil. And he used to tell us about different accountings, stories. It was when he was young, and he was authority of the community, which is called San Pedro Tultepec in the municipality of Lerma. And as authority of the communal lands, which are called ejidos in Mexico, he used to bring his eldest brother, my uncle. He's still alive. And he said once that, of course, the people knew about the Tlanchana, and he was telling his son, please go with me. And they used to go by wooden canoe, you know, in the wetland. And suddenly they heard a beautiful, beautiful song, like a enchanting sound. And they were approaching and they couldn't figure out where that beautiful song was coming from. But there were some kind of stones, and they saw something moving. And there was this beautiful, marvelous woman was combing her hair. And my grandpa said to my uncle, "Oh, this is true. What I have known for many, many years. My father, my mother told me about the Tlanchana, the mermaid." So they stopped by and they were just staring around, and they were just amazed by this figure, this woman. And so they couldn't approach anymore because otherwise the Tlanchana was going to, I don't know, they were just amazed. But when they began to move, the being went into the waters, just like that. And they were looking for something around, but there was nothing else. And some days, the same day in the afternoon, because they went to pick up some animals, and they were allowing other communities to go into the lake to feed the animals, like the cattle and the sheep. So before leaving the place around 5 p.m., they saw again this being from far. But what does it mean? It was the only they saw the being, not anymore, but some other peoples in different areas, in different communities, they have seen around the lake. So he said that people forgot about this being because there were so much damage to the wetlands and to the springs. And we are going to tell you why around that. But just to finish, is that the conception of this being is a deity, is an entity that gives so much life to the wetlands, to the waters, and is the mother of the waters because other people who saw this being, it was full of beings coming from
Armpits?
the armpits, you know, the little fish, the salamanders, what else?
Frogs.
Beings from the wetlands that they are in the water. So that's the reason she was called, or she's called the mother of the waters. So
Called the mother of life.
yeah.
And that's really ingrained in the cosmovision even today. And we will see that she has come and gone throughout the last century for a number of reasons. Just to give you an idea of the complexity of and the diversity of animals, this is just a slide that I pulled from my doctoral thesis about the social ecosystem, and I was trying to represent all the connections. And this, yeah, the arrows are a little bit too crazy over here, just because, yeah, it's an old slide from like the year like it's got 20 years, this slide. And I pulled it last night. But yeah, there's much more. Like there's 70 species of birds, most of them migratory, but many residents. And there used to be so many fish and clams as well, little fish, bigger fish, so many varieties of snakes as well, snails and frogs, and yeah, we were mentioning the salamanders and so forth, and all sorts of birds from, you know, sandy birds that can go with long legs, and those that go in between the bulrush and that make their nests there, and those that fly tremendous distances from the lakes of Canada as well, and that spend the winter over here. Some of the species that are very special to the local people are the ajolote. This is endemic to these wetlands and only live in these wetlands. They are today in high in a very vulnerable state, and they are, well, these beautiful beings that are connected to many stories of creation time. And then there's this yellow rail that is really difficult to see. It loves being within the bulrush, and you're kind of lucky when you do see it, and which has been reported unseen for decades, and that we've just seen a year ago. So they're kind of like bioindicators of the ecosystem integrity of the wetlands. The variety of vegetation here is a very old picture, again, 20-year-old picture, but it's showing that there's the Tifa and there's the Scenoplectus up there that people would cut very carefully and prepare to you know, sell and also weave locally. And we're going to see at least one piece of that your father is weaving later on. And this used to be the major source of, let's say, mats that you would roll out at night and sleep on, and that you would in the houses when you would go in pilgrimage. Your community, the people go about 20 times a year to all these different locations that are very sacred places throughout the highlands of Mexico. And they would take their rolled mat with them to go on the pilgrimage. And it's also the mat that you're going to use to make your altar. And it's going to be the mat where you're going to kneel and you're going to, you know, grind your corn and so forth. This was very typical in a household to have and be making consistently and taking to markets. It was part of that local economy to be working around the cycle of the tule, it's called, the bulrush. And then there's all these edible plants that people would bring home. Men who would go into the lake to cut the bulrush would bring home all these edible plants as well, together with edible fish. So that used to be the way of life and the source of food for around 23 communities in the, around the wetland. We're talking up until the 1950s, 60s. This is again another beautiful plant, very dear to people and very, very dear, significant, and symbolic to people. I'll speak about this one as well.
Okay.
So this is a map that is showing the extents of the Lerma Basin, this river that is born thanks to the formation of an aquifer that is beneath the valley. The waters that get collected and that go down the volcano system and the mountain ridge that is all around this valley are going to be feeding the aquifer, and also there's going to be hundreds of springs that are the feet of the mountains, and also here at the bottom of the floor of the wetlands, and are going to be feeding this superficial water system that is gonna then form a natural river that is going to be meandering and going up to northwards into what is a lake, Chapala, and after that it becomes River Santiago, and it goes out to the Pacific further north. So it's the longest river that there is in Mexico. And it used to have this extension that we're seeing here, the timeline of what originally was a post-glacial lake. So we're talking 10,000 years ago, the ice age came so far south as over here in the highlands of Mexico. And when it receded, it left this water system, and there's many mammoth bones that have been found in this valley, because that's how far south the ice had come. And so 40,000 hectares is the original extension, and then very recently, since the Spanish colonizers chose this valley to be the ground for the feeding of cattle, there were several tens and 20,000 heads of cattle at a single time, like that were like left to freely be feeding from anything that was edible in the shores and inside of the water body. This water body would have some fluctuation through the seasons, rainy seasons and dry seasons. And then, as we can see here, something terrible happened between 1949 and 1965 was the worst. You can see that something tremendous happened, and we're going to tell you a little bit about what happened. And just to give you an idea, for instance, in this, what you're seeing in darker blue are the current remnants on this map. But there was a point that it is when there was only 100 hectares left, that there was practically nothing. And that happened over here, like right after these, for instance, this little group of springs, which give the name Chiconahui. Chiconahuapan is this water body, and it's made of Chiconahui. Chiconahui is a Mexica word for 9. So 9 springs, 2 of them hot springs, would be feeding like bountiful water into this water body. Yeah, but an aqueduct began to be built between 1941 and 1951. And we're going to show you two pictures, and Mindahi might have a little story you want to share about your dad and your uncles.
Yes. This was the first aquifer built in Mexico with the German technology. But almost all the work that happened at that time, it was handmade. Even if they used some machines, but to pick up the, all the soils and remaining, as you could see how they were building this, and it's more or less in there is to carry 15 meters, cubic meters
Of water
of water
per second.
per second. So it's like the size of a horse and a man. You can, they can fit very well in there. And even the people of my community were hired to carry out this work. Because the Toluca Valley is an upper valley, and Mexico City is here. Mexico City was very thirsty already after the revolution. Many people began to go and live around Mexico City because in many countries, like in Mexico, the centralized way of living was the only way to, for the development of such countries. So yes, it's a very sad story at the same time, because they didn't respect the natural flow of the waters. For the management, this dominion or domination way of doing, development, they put dynamite. They put dynamite to get to send the waters underneath, in the aquifer, so they could manage in that way. This was an ecocide because they blew up the springs. There was no need to do that because there was enough water even to feed Mexico City. But that was a tragedy.
Yes. Yes, indeed. It was a tragedy for the people. They had seen the engineers coming and doing all this work, and they had participated in the creation of this tunnel, and they could not fathom that whatever the engineers were up to would mean that forever, the intention was that forever there would be no superficial water, and that the waters would just remain underground in the aquifer system, so that the government would be the single one able to administrate those waters by using this kind of technology that they only had access to, and determining how much water could be driven, not to the communities at all, but to where development and modernity was starting, which was in Mexico City. And so people, when the pump was turned on, that was on June the 24th of 73 years ago, 1951. And they remember it was Dia de San Juan, and suddenly they knew that there was a commission of engineers and government officials who were coming to turn this big pump on, and it was turned on up there, like at the end of the community of Almoloya, up there, and they heard a huge thump underground. And next thing, someone starts to cry out because she's seeing a lady that that the water is being swallowed down, swallowed like inwards. And so she cries for help, and people start running to the springs with candles and flowers and all that they know that might be powerful enough in their minds that can work to prevent that water from extinguishing right in front of their eyes. It was so, you know, such an ordeal, such a huge undertaking that Diego Rivera, the, you know, very, very famous, exceptionally muralist, genius of a muralist in Mexico, at the time, he made this mural in the Valley of Mexico where the waters arrive in Dolores.
Tanque de Dolores.
Tanque de Dolores, the Dolores tank. Honoring in a very paradoxical way what the accomplishment of the engineers and the life that was flowing, the water was bringing the memory of all the life forms that had existed, and that would, yes, begin to have no sense or no meaning for the people consuming the water in the city itself, and devastating a whole community back in the valley next door. This was what the local people who had lived with their mother waters were seeing every day. Barren land, totally dry land, dusty in the months of February and March when the winds would blow so hard from the volcano, and absolutely nothing to eat, nothing to you know, rise the next morning and be happy about, but rather solace and desperation, not knowing what comes now, how are we going to live, how are we going to feed our children, what's going to become of us. And so most people started to started to say, but how can we recover the water? We need to go and claim the water back. We need to go to the pumping sites and, you know, and stop those engines. And what happened was that military men were sent to ensure that these pumping sites would not be attacked, let's say, or taken over by the local people. And so people began to go to the industries. The industries were settling. New, like a huge industrial corridor was starting to grow with industries of all sorts, chemical, also automobile assemblage like Chrysler, Mercedes, and others, but also Pfizer was one of the earlier ones, and Bayer as well. All these that were not allowed to be in their countries were coming during the 1950s and 60s to settle here in the valley, and the people were starting to get enrolled in there. And so
yes, so what happened is that so Mexico City was growing up and more. So in the 70s, even the 80s, they all day and night, they were pumping all of this quantity of waters. But it was not enough anymore. And the aquifer was suffering. There was happening the same what happened in Mexico City. because the first waters came from the south of Mexico City, from Xochimilco. But then there, the subduction of the soil began to occur. And the same was happening in Toluca Valley. So it was in 1994, the first time we carry out a ritual, a ceremony, because we have a very beautiful ceremonial center, which is the Otomian Ceremonial Center in the Toluca Valley, by the mountains. But remember that Christianization has been very powerful force of domination. So most of the people, we were not allowed to carry out ceremony in public. So it was the first time when we gathered different peoples from my state and Mexico State. We call them for the Fiesta por la Vida, celebration for life. And then we carry out this ceremony for the first time. Because in other times, people were attacked or they were called witches or witchery, evil thing. Even the most sacred, one of the most sacred places in my community is a cave. Well, in 1977, a bishop ordered to close that cave. And on top of it, it was built a little temple, Catholic temple. Just recently, 1977. In the other more sacred site, another temple was built. It was one of the first temples in Mexico that was built in 1529.
In your island.
On top of the island. So you can imagine carrying out the ceremony, but we kept doing ever since year by year these ceremonies. So in 1999, we were praying so much to recover the waters. We were praying to this entity because we know that the spiritual world is very important. We kept those belief systems. So we carry out this ritual and we were asking to come back or to bring back the waters.
And that she would come back because she had left.
And it was the year with the most rains that came. So the lake was being recovered ever since. So then we invited Langara College and the UBC, the University of British Columbia, some scientists and some students to support us. So the biological and chemical studies could be carried out with social sciences together. So we would put together a proposal to defend the wetlands of central Mexico. To protect. So it took us more than 3 years. It was not easy. Even we went to work with the local environmental sector office. It was well at that time the Secretary of Ecology. Now it's the Secretary of Environment. But we proposed for the first time a proposal coming from the communities because we went all the communities around and we were talking with the authorities, the local authorities, the ejidos and comuneros, and they agreed that we should protect, if we wanted to bring back the Lerma River because it was channelized during this time, we had to bring not just, you know, the proposal from the people, but the scientific studies to protect these territories. So Geraldine and others came to Mexico, and we were able to establish this studio base, the basic study to protect these wetlands. It was until the year, and this is
And the result of that study.
this is the result. But we were facing a problem because the state, in order to, you know, to carry out decrees, they have kind of machotes, how do you call that?
Ready-made decree forms that were ready to be filled up, you know, with paragraph 1, it has to say, well, who is calling for this protection, and paragraph 2 is going to be about what government authorities are going to be the ones managing the area, and then paragraph 3,
Yes.
preliminary, like paragraph about why it's important to protect it, etc. But it was ready-made, and it did not have any you know, language or requirement about the participation of local people in this protection process.
Yes, we were looking, I was working with the lawyer, you know, the local lawyer of this government. And I was telling him, let's take into consideration original nations and peoples, so-called indigenous peoples' rights. And there's a covenant, or how do you say, the 169 ILO Convention, which allows the acknowledgement of the original nations and peoples' way of self-determination. But it was not taken into consideration because it was against the, you know, the state management of natural resources. And let me just put in between some concepts, you know, in all what we learn in the universities, you know, nature is commodified. Just the name of natural resources is very powerful, you know, because we, the original nations and people, we don't call the water a resource. It's a sacred element. You treat this being different. You live with the waters. So when the Spaniards arrived to this country, they saw the waters as a dirty place. So they had to, you know, to channelize the rivers and so on. And that's the so-called management. They didn't want mosquitoes. So that's the story of, not just in Mexico, that's the story of many places around the world. So this decree was not easy to achieve. Why? Because there is you know, like the environment is, you know, became very strong after Rio. You know, the ministers of environment began to exist just from the Rio summit. You know, before it was just something very low level. Anyway, what happened in Mexico is that the Secretariat of Natural Resources, they still call like that, you know, has its own way of, it's very permissive. The environmental law is very permissive. So, but even more, the Secretary of Economy, they have this special office that is called COFEMER, la Comisión de Mejora Regulatoria, the regulatory something that they look after the companies, corporations' interests. So if they are challenged, their interests, then they don't sign, or the president is, you know, is very difficult for the president to sign this kind of decrees. Well, at that time, for the first time, there was another president, not from the PRI, you know, it was from the PAN, another party, right wing party. But he was giving every Saturday a radio program, Vicente Fox, and it was called the program Fox Contigo, Fox with you. At that time, I was representing the citizenship under the NAFTA Commission of Environmental Cooperation, the JPAC, the Joint Public Advisory Council. I was one of the members representing North America in that JPAC commission. So I had the opportunity to be invited by the president to for this program. And I began to talk about the Lerma River and how it's very important for us and for the culture and so on and so forth. And suddenly he said, what can we do for you? So I took the opportunity to tell him, why don't you sign the decree to protect the wetlands of the Lerma River? He said, oh, yes, that's a very brilliant and good idea. So in public, he said that.
In the radio.
In the radio. So that's how we achieved this decree, just by chance. Just by chance. But this is the spirit of the Lerma River that goes all the way to the Pacific. So this was, even though we didn't achieve to acknowledge the collective rights, the inherent rights of original peoples and nations, but still it's a step forwards. Because now we have the rights of nature and the earth jurisprudence that are, you know, even more powerful, but here at this time, it was a big success. Go ahead, Geraldine.
So as this was going on, we were studying our PhDs and we were motivating more people to speak and call for seminaries and to call for conferences and just put our heads together about, you know, the historic challenges and the ecocide that had really happened, even though I think we did even mention genocide and ecocide in our books.
Ethnocide.
Yeah, ethnocide, sorry. And we started to like write, I mean, and publish what we had been thinking about with other scholars. So these are just some of the books that we've written. There's one that is not there, which is mine, which is Ecology and Culture. There was this beautiful collection edited by Mindahi. The editorial coordination was by Mindahi at the time when the new campus of the Metropolitan Autonomous University that had only been in the Valley of Mexico, for the first time, they said, we want to be in the Valley of Toluca. So the government, the federal government said, oh, we've got federal land, like the Xochimilco land. So Xochimilco is partially still a wetland in the Valley of Mexico, and another portion is dry. So whenever there's a water body that becomes dry, then that automatically becomes federal land. And so something like a public university can be placed on that federal newly exposed land. That's what happened in Xochimilco. And when there was this newly exposed land between the water body that we've seen a little bit more about, which is the southern one, and the next one, there is an exposed big, like about 400 or 500 hectares, and that's where the university was offered some land. But then they wanted to make all these beautiful books and honor the wetlands and the tradition and the heritage, biocultural heritage. At the time also, which is 2000.
13, 14, 14.
14
went to-
and yeah, 13, 14, the municipality in the heartland of the wetlands, there's a municipality, like urban area, and they were celebrating their 400th anniversary of being created. This is totally a Spanish colony that would have, done things like forbid kids to come from the communities, neighboring communities, unless they had shoes on, unless they were dressed with proper, modern clothes, unless they did not speak the mother tongue language, they were allowed into school. That kind of thing happened to your dad and your uncles. And now Mindahi had the opportunity to be advising the president of the municipality about, how to honor the ancestral wisdom and cosmovision. So things like, let's call the museum Zambata was approved. Zambata meaning the original Otomian name of the valley, the Valley of the Moon. So that's that was something that now became in the more collective consciousness, that the municipality is living in the heartland of a whole wetland system that is resilient and is surviving and wanting to thrive, and that we are not meant to be polluting and rejecting and keeping in the margins of our decision making. The same for this. This is a cultural forum. I said, yeah, municipal cultural forum, and it's called Time and Space, TIE, which is TIE is the one concept that means space and time. And well, you can speak about your dad, but
Yes.
yeah, your dad.
Yes, it's been very difficult to keep the traditions alive because, as you know, the wetland was almost gone, but also the elders were also gone.
Yeah, for about 30 years it was almost.
Because many people began to go to somewhere else because the hunting, the picking up was gone. So they had to go to Mexico City to look for jobs or to the industrial newly developing industries. So this is a more recent picture with my dad, and he was telling me, he was crying. He was crying how the life and the connection with the entities and the connection with the waters. He used to tell me how sometimes at 3 a.m. they used to go with boat, but with canoe to pick up the bulrushes. And suddenly, they couldn't even get the fish. They couldn't even get the tules, the bulrushes. So my father is now 92. And he still, when he talks about the wetlands, La Laguna, the Deer Laguna, is always in his heart. But we know that with this, what we are sharing with you, is there's a resilience. It's a resilience, and it's not just whatever resilience. It's a resilience with the spirit. Because we keep carrying out every single year this ritual, these ceremonies to celebrate life. So we know that prayer also is very powerful when you have intention, when you really know what you are doing. So now these are just this year, these paintings and in the cemetery, is in the collective, even in the young people, they still have this sacred connection. Because it's not just about biodiversity, it's about the sacred connection with biodiversity. That's the reason we don't distinguish or we don't differentiate that much biodiversity and culture. We prefer because it's intertwined. That's the reason we prefer biocultural diversity. But as you can see in the world, you know, there's the ministers of environment, the ministers of culture, and so on and so forth, divided. And there is no public policy that really takes into consideration this, how we see life directly. This,
There's no public policy, but in this campus that was built and that started to run with a new group of professors, among which were yourself, myself, and others. This is around the year 2012, 2013, 14, 15, and ongoing. Municipal policy making, environmental science, hydrology were new careers that were offered for the youth in the valley. And this has meant that now they have become professionals, and now they are so ready to start helping ensure that there is a perpetual level of protection and that there is a management plan, because ever since the decree was published and signed and published in 2002, there has been no success in creating a management plan, because there has been no willingness among the municipalities to come together and bring the stakeholders that would include the industrial sector to get together with the local people, and that they would respect whatever the local people want. So this kind of activities like biocultural camps are being organized by the young people themselves with our mentorship, and they're connecting with the people that we are advising that they would connect first, which is the traditional authorities. I don't know if you're gonna read your comment.
Just to let you know that we have done the studies and all of that, but we also have this special connection with this being. So a couple of years ago, I wrote this book. It's called El Libro Azul, the blue book with poems. And one of the poems is dedicated to this being, the Tlanchana. Because in the stories, they said that when they put dynamite to the springs, the mermaid left, and the people cried. And but the elders were saying there is going to be a time when the mermaid is going to come back. And when in 1999, when we were carrying out this, the studies and the rituals, the water was coming back, but also the mermaid. And many of you know that, the mountains, the rivers, other places they have also guardians, not just material, but spiritual guardians. And we know it because we have lived with them. And that's the reason one thing is to live with the earth, with Mother Earth, and another one is to live from. That makes a big difference. And that's the reason why we have this sacred relationship with the land, with the territory. And that's the reason why the United Nations are acknowledging that 80% of the biodiversity of the world is in the so-called indigenous lands. Let's not take it for granted, but they are under threat as this wetland. Still, this wetland is under threat because they wanted to build more industrial parks, but also for the urban sprawl. They wanted to build more, these casitas, these little houses for the people, and just to destroy forever and to change the weather. Because the wetlands, as you know, are key for the balance of the weathers.
And also for the balance of the climate. So we are seeing very sadly how that initial image where we were seeing the volcano and it was snow-peaked volcano, because that picture was from maybe 2008.
Mhm.
But for the past about 10 years and more evidently for the past 3 years, there has been no snow year round in the what used to be snow peaks of the volcano. So just very recently, you have gone to offer ceremony.
Yes, the volcano is also a being. And we know that it got also spirit. It's a special energy that dwells in this, we call sacred sites. Why are they so important? They are important because they bring the energy that we need, not just as humans, but for other species to thrive. And this is maybe is in the spiritual context that you understand a little bit, but more and more, even science has to deal with that. Because this is the time that we most understand that we are just not matter. We are not just thoughts. We are a special connection with the spiritual world. So that's the reason this sacred connection with these entities, like the volcanoes, we carry out these ceremonies. And that's the reason we appreciate and honor the sacred elements of life. And they were doing this for millennia. And we are just remembering and recovering. Carrying out these rituals now is so important, not just for us, for the world. Because it's not just to meet our responsibilities, but also to continue this life and to celebrate life. That's all about it. Because we also need to be in that connection and with the sacred connection, so we recover human collective dignity, just as another species.
And yes, dignity for sure, which is what these men have been holding for decades. They try to remain in connection with the wetland as much as possible, and in the most conscious ways possible. They use this kind of canoe, never introducing anything that is motor, driven. They do hunt, and they ensure that it's only for local consumption for their own families. And they are more and more trying to make sure that there's not any illegal hunting happening, because they are creating systems of monitoring and surveilling, which is part of what the management plan is ensuring as well, as it's beginning for the first time to be discussed. In fact, we were invited to the first meeting, and that was November 2023, 21 years after the publication of the decree. This is how much we've had to wait for conditions to and for the willingness of government officials to call the stakeholders to decide how to manage the wetland. And this is just, it's a cell phone capture. So you can, and there's all around, there's towards with there's the city of Toluca and other small communities at the foothills of the volcano. So this is the final slide. It's just to say, I don't know how we can, yeah, just to say that definitely it helps that there are ejido and communal lands. We're not speaking about privately owned lands, because this is the system of land holding and land tenure that has been alive since, well, the revolution. And yes, there has been some, changes in the constitution so that the ejido lands will be able to be privatized, but then the collectivity of traditional authorities has maintained a strong campaign, by just going door to door and just repeating to people that the ejido land is not for sale. And thanks to that, there can be assemblies held and there can be agreements, and the ejido tenureship will only be, from father to son. So now you have become an ejidatario recently, Mindahi. Yeah, and you should be speaking instead of me about the main agreements of the members.
Well, all of this
There's
is
many ejidos.
the ideal, but so many things are happening because the population is growing up, even though there are less members of the family, each family, but the population is growing, and they need land, they need resources, they need so many things, but still there is this list that they are willing to push forwards. But now I must tell you that these communities our communities are having very difficult times, because holding that 80% of biodiversity, and I must say in brackets, that is, we are not just taking care about the 80% of biodiversity of the world, we pray for all biodiversity of the world. Wherever we go, we don't change and unplug ourselves, and we don't take care about other places. That's how we were raised. But things are changing as well because of school, because of the type of curricula that we have, how we learn, how we interact with the natural world. These values are changing. So now we need to really ask for support to others. This is not just our task. This is human agency that we must come back home and really do what we have to do to carry out the care of life. Because it's everybody's responsibility. It's everyone's. And this is the time. There is no other time. This is the time. Because you know what is happening in the world. But I must tell you that we went to I came from Iceland, Greenland, and north of Canada to carry out some special rituals. But many people don't know, but it's not just climate change that is happening. Something is happening in the womb of Mother Earth that is called the core of the Earth. It's hitting up as well. Why? Because, you know, like the Tlanchana, the beings are also exhausted. They are not being honored. That's what is happening. So we are living through these difficult times, and what is not just what we say is not just this anthropocentric way of thinking. What we call in the sustainability paradigm, the intergenerational equity, what world we are delivering for the following generations. It's not just about that. It's about that, yes, but what kind of people we are delivering to this world? So we must think about our place in the world. Rethink what kind of creatures we are. So this is just something that we have achieved little by little. It's a little step forwards. But now we need to be united, as we call unity in the diversity. It's not easy. It's not easy to meet our responsibilities, but it's about time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Very inspiring and full vision for all of us. We're a little bit over time, but we can take one or two questions. I think everybody has a couple of questions.
Hi, thank you so much for a very inspiring talk. I was struck by the power of story and ceremony in the face of technocratic, legal, the sort of the bureaucracy and the power dynamics. And I guess my reflection is in countries like the UK, where our relationship with nature is poor, and we've from one perspective, we've lost our elders, we've lost that connection. But how do we reconnect with that sacredness and use those stories, that sacredness, in a sincere way, without kind of cultural appropriation, without trying to steal, when we are, a melting pot of various different cultures with a history that is domination, colonialism, command and control. How would you speak to that when you're speaking to, the sons and daughters of the oppressors?
Yes, I've seen in this beautiful conference of the nature-based solutions. It's the categories also are very important. But I saw beautiful people. I saw this man from Scotland, the man Mac, who is planting trees, and Alan, who is highly connected. Let's begin with that, acknowledging those elders, because they have something to say. They have a way of being, a way of doing, a way of feeling, and they are the elders of these territories. But plus, there is a movement, international movement that we are able to go here and there. We are able to support, to remember together, and we can carry out ceremony. Then there is a process of the dream time. If you are connected and you are beginning to be connected, you can recover memory. There is a beautiful story about one of the Dene spiritual elders I know. He's very young. He said we went together to the Fuji volcano because we do carry out worldwide work. And I was with him, and he heals with the songs. But he just knew just like 2, 3 songs because his grandfather taught him. But when I was hearing and how I was seeing how he was healing other people through the songs, but I said, you know more than 3 songs? Come on. And he said, yes, I have recovered more than 200 songs for different aspects. So I asked him, how did you recover those songs? Through dream time. So most of the time we are very rational. Let's become less rational and let's connect more. Let's connect the brain with the heart. And then we could have access to mystery. Because mystery is not for us to understand, it's for us to live in with mystery.
Thank you. In your management agreement or draft management agreement, I think it said no tourism of any type would be allowed. So I wonder what the rationale for that is. And also, how does it fit with the concept that biodiversity belongs to everybody and everybody's part of biodiversity if you're being exclusionary?
Yes, I think that note, it was, I think it has to be clarified because it's not the tourism that takes over. It's that tourism that comes together and be educated. And it has to be also studied that the capacidad de carga. You know, how much people the ecosystem is able to sustain.
Ecological capacity, carry capacity. Yeah.
So
But yes, and there is discussion about that. It is true. Your father has said it always.
yeah,
The wetlands are a heritage for the whole of humanity, not just that we have cared so much for you to enjoy, but it's for the whole world to enjoy. And yet, we need to be very careful in Mexico with this mindset of taking and taking and taking. And if there's any opportunity to take over altogether, then that will happen very fast before we know it. So yes, what is being spoken slowly is how this could happen in a very careful way, perhaps family by family, weekend by weekend, day by day. There would be a whole layout of who can come in and and where will the visits happen, and that there will be no construction, even because everything can explode so fast if you place one little hut, and it's really cute and it's got its dry toilet and everything looks cutie and beautiful, but even that can really multiply, and before you know it, there's not the dry toilet, and there's the all these other elements that cannot be controlled. So
but you are touching something very important because we have this problem about ownership. Most of the time we acknowledge ourselves as caretakers or caregivers of the land. And we have this struggle with all others to try to take over. So every day there are, even now, guards.
there's the communal members. There's
Ejido.
282 members in the ejido. For this wetland that has its, more extended body of more water. And in all the surroundings, and especially in some spots, there are people wanting to come in and settle in every day and every night. So every day and every night, there is a roll list of everyone, even Mindahi has to go and sit 24 hours to guard every day and every night. Yeah, because it's tremendous.
It's extremely, but I want to go back to what you say. You know, we are talking about biocultural heritage, biocultural diversity. There are places around the world that, you know, there are guardians, or even the state, or even now some corporations are buying land in some places because they want to protect, no? And sometimes it's a way to to go in and do the mining and the clear cut and so on and so forth. Yes, I think we need an international regime to look after the so-called commons, because we are losing possibilities as human beings because of the greed, because of commodification of life, and even the commodification of the spirit. We have that problem. So thank you for bringing that.
One final question.
I find myself in the dark corner of the room. Thank you so much for your presentation. I totally loved your journey, your story, and the room was completely silent because it was just so powerful. Thank you for sharing your experience. And I can completely hear your pain. People like natural beauties. They will come with a tent, and then you'll see thousands of them the following week, and they'll be taking selfies. So, and that will. My question is, so first, I really, I could completely see how your connection with the government, when you had a dialogue directly by saying, we are the community, this is our treasure, it matters to us, we're vulnerable, please protect us. And that was heard. Did you think, because of through publication, that worked, it channeled more exposure, but have you thought of making it a little bit more profound and telling your success story even on a bigger scale? Because globally there will be communities who are very spiritual and for whom their wetlands matter just as much as for you. They're sacred, they dependent on it, and different languages. Just having the world community building a strength towards not stigmatizing, but instead celebrating the traditions, the diversity of rituals, if you don't have an answer to this right now, maybe it's just a food for thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. La pregunta cuál fue?
Yeah, I had a little difficulty in hearing, but yeah, I think what you're inviting us to think through is the fact that are so many communities throughout the world that are willing to celebrate life and Mother Nature in so many ways with their traditional ways of celebrating that have been stigmatized and have been, even threatened by the local priest, or by other forms of thinking and wanting to exploit, etc., that have nothing to do with the way of life and the way of living in good relationship with the wetland. And that maybe it would be good to share this story and invite other stories to come so that they will feel empowered to recover those ways of relating that are dear to their heart. Something like that. Yes. Yes. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
No more questions? I think so.
I'm forgetting the name of the report, but there was a report that came out recently from the Center for Earth Ethics that was actually starting to document these where you're having these biocultural restoration projects. So you're where the cultural and the to some extent spiritual aspects are actually being brought into it. So I'll find that and circulate that for the group. It's really interesting, and it's I think it's something that we need to see a lot more of, particularly because it sort of roots the communities back in the land.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you for that.
Great. Okay, so thank you very much. We have some drinks. Sorry, yeah.
So I just wanted to add, because before you mentioned, so Mindahi and Geraldine are part of a council called the Earth Elders, which is around the Eagle and the Condor prophecy. It's a council of 13 elders and soon to be 52. And I'm supporting with filmmaking. And while you were telling the story, I was actually thinking this should be part of the film because wetlands, you know, are universal all over the world and need to be protected. And it's such an incredible story. So I was going to suggest that, but you were just saying, so I'm just going to say it out loud.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we've got some drinks at the back there, so if we were to link it to casual conversation, snacks and drinks there as well. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.